To be human is to be religious. To be religious is to be mindful. To be mindful is to pay attention. To pay attention is to sanctify existence. May our time together this morning in worship be a time to sanctify the existence of our lives and of life around us. Will you please join me in the chalice lighting words? We kindle this chalice flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to see you. We're having an east side, I don't want to say right side, I guess it's the left side of the congregation is heavy. So we're going to get more people to sit over there. It is lovely to look out and see all of you today. Welcome to worship at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. A congregation committed to searching for truth, advocating for justice, practicing compassion, cherishing life and possibility. We acknowledge that this meeting house, all of our buildings, most of our homes, here for more than 200 years, this building, at least, is on the land of the Western Abenaki, who for many more centuries than that have lived and created community and cared for this part of the great earth, parent of us all. They are here still, and we are here too. Our work is to acknowledge, to learn, to find ways into partnership and reparation and stewardship. My name is Tricia Hart. I'm the Developmental Senior Minister of this congregation, and I am very glad that you are here. I am glad that you are also with us remotely, wherever you are. I want to ask if any of you who are new for the first or second time are willing to maybe raise your hand so that we can kind of wave at you. Ooh, nice. So since there are so many of you, you want to just take just a minute? We're not going to do the old greeting, no shaking of hands, okay? But turn and maybe kind of wave at somebody that you don't know or somebody that you do. We have waving from one side of the balcony to the other. I like that. Excellent. If you are a new person or new-ish to this congregation and you would like us to know who you are, there are welcome cards in the pews. You can fill out one of those. You can also check in if you can find her with Sarah Rosedal, who is here someplace. Sarah, there she is, right over there with a welcome on her mask. She's doing double or triple duty today because she was also helping with the Sunday morning breakfast. But she'd love to meet you and find out what your questions are and welcome you here. I am Glad to be working today with James Stewart, our music director, with our tech team up there, with Mary and Christina and David behind the scenes, with Erica Reef and Margot Whitcomb, who are our faith development staff who are with us here today. And today, I am delighted to welcome Keith Cron as our guest worship leader. Keith is the director of the Transitions Office. That's still the name. We haven't changed it again yet? Okay. At the Unitarian Universalist Association, where he has been in that role. So in case you don't know what transitions that refers to, that means ministerial transitions. So those of us who are ministers know Keith. All of us know Keith well. The people who are serving on search committees, hey, is our search committee represented today? I bet you are. Thank you for all the work that you did all the time and yesterday. So 12 years in that position, is that right? 26 years at the Unitarian Universalist Association. And he has visited over 450 of our Unitarian Universalist congregations all over the continent. Before he became a Unitarian Universalist minister, Keith was an elementary school teacher in Lexington, Kentucky, and really knows a lot about children's literature and has a private library of thousands of kids' books, and he's going to share one with the children in a little bit. He currently lives in one of the coolest cities. I'm so glad to know this. Keith, can I tell them? Keith says that there are 3 really cool cities in New England. One of them is Providence, Rhode Island, where Keith lives. One of them is Portland, Maine, and one of them is Burlington, Vermont. Keith is also a tennis player, a sometime tennis pro. He's taught religious education at the Star King School for the Ministry, and he really likes finding good bookstores. He did a bit of that work yesterday after he led the workshop. And I'm so delighted that he's also my friend. The people of this congregation, of this society, come from many different backgrounds. You hold a variety of religious and spiritual beliefs and practices, and this is a good thing. We strive to be a radically welcoming community. So whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, whatever your questions, your fears, your hopes, you are welcome. And we are glad that you are here now. Let us worship.
Everybody, I invite you to stand with me if you're able, and we're going to sing together hymn number 1017. Hymn 1017, it's in the teal hymnal. We'll have the words on the overhead because I'd like your help with this one, okay? I'm going to need you to clap your hands so that we have a little bit of a beat. So it's going to be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Let's do a little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and... We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. Working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. Feed our every need. We can our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. Feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. Thank you very much. You may be seated.
So there's a story that Keith is going to tell. If there are any small people or people who are feeling like small people today, would you come up and sit right here, and Keith will tell the story so you can see it too?
Good morning. This morning I'm going to share Penelope's story. This is Penelope. She is a little Tyrannosaurus Rex. This is the story of her going to school for the first time. The author is Ryan Higgins. He lives in Kittery, Maine, also a New Englander, and if he's not a Unitarian Universalist, he should be. The title of Penelope's story is We Don't Eat Our Classmates. Penelope Rex was nervous. It's not every day a little T-Rex starts school. What are my classmates going to be like? Will they be nice? How many teeth will they have? All of these questions were very important to Penelope. Penelope's mom bought her a new backpack with ponies on it. Ponies were Penelope's favorite because ponies are delicious. Penelope's dad packed her a lunch of 300 tuna fish sandwiches and 1 box of apple juice. Finally, the big day came, and Penelope Rex was very surprised to find out that all of her classmates were children. So she ate them, because children are delicious. Penelope Rex, said Mrs. Noodleman, we don't eat our classmates. Please spit them out at once. So she did. It was not the best way to start school. Still, Penelope was determined to have a very good first day. She tried very hard to make friends at recess. But standing at the bottom of the slide with her mouth open didn't help. She thought she finger painted some of her best work. But the finger painting of the dinosaur eating the child didn't win her any friends either. She even saved Griffin Emery a seat next to her at lunch. Here, you can sit next to me, she said. he didn't. And Penelope started to notice that everyone was making friends but her. And it was lonely. So when she got home, her dad asked her about her first day of school. "I didn't make any friends," Penelope cried. "None of the children wanted to play with me." Penelope Rex, "Did you eat your classmates?" "Well, maybe, sort of, just a little bit," she said. "Sometimes it's hard to make friends," said her dad, "especially if you eat them. You see, Penelope, children are just the same as us on the inside, only tastier." And that gave Penelope a lot to think about. The next day at school, Penelope tried really hard. But poor Penelope, she couldn't stop herself from eating her classmates. "Mrs. Noodleman, Penelope ate William Amoto again." She spit him out, but they were all still afraid of her. Except for Walter. Walter was the goldfish. So Penelope tried to make friends with Walter. "Will you be my friend?" she asked, and she put her finger into the bowl, and Walter went chomp, and he bit her finger. "Ee," cried Penelope, "he's eating my finger." But once Penelope found out what it was like to be someone's snack, she lost her appetite for children. She stopped eating her classmates. Even when Cece Woodman spilled barbecue sauce all over herself. And soon Penelope began to make friends. They played hide and seek. She even made brownies for them. And now, even when children look especially delicious, she peeks at Walter and remembers what it's like when someone tries to eat you. And Walter the goldfish stares right back, and he licks his lips. Because dinosaurs are delicious. And that is our story. May we eat none of our fellow classmates. It's time for you to go to your classes now.
So as we let that interesting story settle into us, and the music and the spaciousness of this hour we share, would you take a breath? And maybe one more for good measure. Join me in a few moments of meditation and reflection, first in some spoken words, and then in shared silence, and then in creating a beautiful rock garden. This is a poem called Boundaries by the Reverend Lynn Unger. The universe does not revolve around you. The stars and planets spinning through the ballroom of space dance with one another quite outside of your small life. You cannot hold gravity or seasons. Even air and water inevitably evade your grasp. Why not then let go? You could move through time like a shark through water, neither restless nor ceasing, absorbed in and absorbing the native element. Why pretend you can do otherwise? The world comes in at every pore, mixes in your blood before breath releases you into the world again. Did you think the fragile boundary of your skin could build a wall? Listen, every molecule is humming its particular pitch. Of course, you are a symphony. Whose tune do you think the planets are singing as they dance? There are many joys and sorrows among us today, every day. In the community of this congregation, some of us are getting healthier, glad to see the other side of illness. Chip Patullo, among others, who is recovering from his second knee replacement surgery faster than he expected. And Brian Haas is up to and out and among us as he recovers from his stroke. Others, too, are recovering, and some of us are struggling to adjust to a new reality of illness or infirmity or despair. Struggling and holding on with the help of friends. Some of us hope that that light ahead really is a new path, and that they will have the courage to follow it, trusting. Life is hard and beautiful, and you are, of course, a symphony, as Lynn Unger reminds us. It is your tune the planets sing as they dance. Let us rest for a moment in the not quite silence that we make together. We trust one another with our joys and our sorrows. We trust and we rely on one another for our gifts of all kinds, including our financial gifts, which help this congregation, which don't just help this congregation, make this congregation exist. Your gifts matter always for this congregation and also for the organizations we share our gifts with. So it is December, folks, which means that our shared beneficiary this month is the congregation's socially responsible Santa program. If you haven't heard of this, it's been around for a number of years. The idea is to gather money and give cash gifts to families and individuals in the community who are in need. By giving money directly to people, our hope is to empower them to choose the gifts to have the holiday time that they want and need and want to give to those they love. So your gifts will be generous, will be gratefully received. Your generous gifts will be received. And I hope that you will join me in the words of dedication for this morning's offering. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice. There are many ways that you can make a gift. One of them, for those who want to, is to come up and put something in the basket. You can do that during the offertory.
And so this is Christmas. And what have you done? Another year over, and a new one just begun. And so this is Christmas. I hope you have fun. The near and the dear ones, the old and the young. A merry, merry Christmas and a happy new year. Let's hope it's a good one without any fear. And so this is Christmas, for weak and for strong, the rich and the poor ones. The road is so long, and so happy Christmas for old and for young, for every gender and everyone. A merry, merry Christmas and a happy new year. Let's hope it's a good one without any fear. Could you help me sing this part? War is over if you want it. War is over now. Sing that again. War is over if you want it. War is over now. Keep singing that. And so this is Christmas. And what have you done? Another year over, and a new one just begun. And so happy Christmas. We hope you have fun. The near and the dear one, the old and the young. A Merry, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's hope it's a good one without any fear. So let's sing it together. War is over. War is over if you want it. War is over now. War is over if you want it. War is over now.
Here's a reading written by a guy named Keith Cron. It was a nearly perfect summer day for a walk, and I wasn't alone. My favorite sighting on my street in Providence was a woman walking her adorable French bulldog down the street. I heard, "Good boy, Luke," several times as she pulled slightly on the leash to keep Luke from being too distracted. Around the corner comes a man with a pit bull. Luke immediately goes stock still. The pit bull is wagging her tail with the greatest of hope and charm, clearly excited about the possibility of a new friend. She won me over. The woman tries to get Luke to move forward in vain this time, as the French bulldog is playing statue. Eventually, the man with the pit bull reaches the woman and her dog. If possible, the French bulldog gets even stiffer. The woman is trying to say to Luke that it's okay, and the pit bull sniffs hopefully and inquisitively at her new wished-for friend. And then, in an instant, Luke relaxes and sniffs back. And quickly their tails are all a-wagging as they sniff and nuzzle and snort. I notice the owners have relaxed and then have unclenched, and they're now talking amiably, though near as I can tell, their tails are not a-wagging with the same veracity as their pets. It's only then that I realize I had been clenching and now feel my body relaxing. I left the happy foursome and headed off, thinking how much of a metaphor this has become for today's times. How we all seem to be living lives of trepidation, and yet hope and kindness are out there if we look beyond the stereotypes, if we present ourselves with kindness, if we just try. I thought about the reputations that pit bulls have, and yet she was the kindest of them all. Maybe in these difficult and trying times we need to be more like that pit bull in whatever ways we can, offering a little hope and kindness to those new friends we might make. Thus ends the reading.
Emily Bernard wrote a book entitled Black is the Body. It is in some ways about her experience of being stabbed one night in a coffee shop by a young man with mental health issues. What is interesting is in this short snippet, she talks about the harm and violence she experienced on the night she got stabbed. I did experience terrible pain on the night of August 7th. The person responsible for it was the surgeon on call. I lay on a gurney feeling helpless and afraid. The surgeon walked over and, without saying a word to me or even looking in my direction, plunged his fingers into my gaping wound. I gasped, and I instinctively grabbed his hand. It was only then that the man looked at me and said icily, "Don't touch my hand." His eyes were Aryan blue and as cold as his voice. I asked questions about what was happening to me. He refused to respond. Only the attending nurses treated me with any kindness and respect. Whenever I tell the story of the night that I got stabbed, I always say the person who did the most harm to me, who did the most injury, who left the deepest wounds, was not Daniel Silva, the young man who stabbed me, but it was that surgeon. I've been thinking a lot about harm, and I've been thinking a lot about the future of religion. It started before the pandemic and has accelerated since, but some of you may remember 4 years ago, in August of 2018, word broke of yet another sex scandal in the Catholic Diocese of Pittsburgh. It was just 2 months later when a man walked in to the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh and shot and killed 11 people. It has made me wonder, why do any of us trust religion at all? It can be a place of great harm. And yet I think of the call to worship, the words from Robert Fulghum that began our service, that to be human is to be religious. Being religious is being mindful is to pay attention, and to pay attention is to sanctify existence. We are always exploring religious questions. And I think the question becomes, can our congregation be a place to explore those questions? In the work that I do, one of the things I do is I often train ministers. And every time I do a training for people new to interim ministry, I always ask them to create a list. What does your congregation need from its interim minister? The answers are what you would expect. We need good preaching. We need with someone who can work with us on leadership. We need pastoral care. We need someone who can work with staff. What continues to surprise me are the two things I have never heard in the years that I have led this training. Because not one minister has said, we need a minister with whom we can build trust. We need a minister who will work with us to do no harm. And do no harm to us. But as I think about saying that, it occurs to me in 13 cycles now of seeing congregational records, no congregation has ever asked for a minister who has done no harm, who will build trust. Maybe we assume that those are given. I think it is time that we pay attention to these two important qualities that build trust in religion. We think about all that we have been through in the last couple of years with the pandemic as we move into a new normal, as we have survived an attempted coup of our government, as we have seen Roe versus Wade overturned, as we've seen shooting after shooting. A church can be a place where we can relearn and relive the values of what it means to be together, to trust one another, to be a place of no harm. How will we show up in the world? And how do we build trust and rebuild trust in our faith, in religion, and here in the United States? We start simply by showing up together, even when we don't know what to do. Some 24 years ago, when I was in my old position as the director of the Office of Bisexual, Gay, Lesbian, and Transgender Concerns, many of you remember an October afternoon when Matthew Shepard was found tied to a fence in Wyoming and left to die. Word was that the Westboro Baptist Church was going to show up and protest Matthew's funeral and death. There was a call from religious leaders in Wyoming to send denominational representatives to show that religion had another face besides the hate that they were going to see from Westboro. 2 denominational leaders showed up. The Metropolitan Community Church, a gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender member congregation, Christian congregation here in the United States, and I went on behalf of the UUA. I showed up at the interfaith service to be a voice that religion could be something other than a place of condemnation. I was asked by the minister of our small congregation in Laramie if I would go and say a few words that Sunday morning after the service, and then afterwards we would go to the fence and lay down some flowers in memory of Matthew. I agreed. I showed up in Laramie that morning. The minister read a letter that someone had sent to the congregation offering some hope, turned to me and said, "And now Reverend Cron will deliver the sermon this morning for our congregation." I have absolutely no memory of what I said that morning. I do remember being there with the people in Laramie, trying to make sense of it all. Later, we went to the fence. The minister laid down some flowers, turned to me and said, "And now Reverend Cron will deliver the memorial service for Matthew Shepard." I'm sure I said a few words. I don't remember. I will always remember standing at that fence, at the scene of the horrendous violence that had happened earlier that week. Later, I asked the minister, who is brand new to ministry, I thought we had agreed that I was just going to say a few words, that I was just going to offer some condolences. And he said to me, "I am brand new. I have no idea what to do in a situation like this." I panicked. I said, "Who of us knows what to do in a situation like this? All you can do is show up and be together with one another." A reminder that human beings coming together matter and make a difference. I was reminded of that just a few months later. I had been asked to be a guest preacher at our congregation in Littleton, Colorado. The congregation in Littleton, Colorado is the closest church to Columbine High School. I was the first guest preacher there 2 weeks after the high school shooting. I walked in and see how human beings could come together and matter, because when I walked into that sanctuary, there was not a blank space on the wall. Letters from people in our congregations, pictures from children in our religious education programs had been sent to Columbine UU Church and now covered every inch of the wall of that sanctuary. You could feel this congregation being held in love as they were trying to make sense of the violence that had just happened. You could feel that being in that congregation mattered. A little thing like sending a picture, sending a letter mattered. I think about Brené Brown, the writer and researcher who talks a lot about trust. She talks about how trust is built in little moments. I believe that to be true, and if it is true, if it is built in little moments, it can be broken in little moments. Even when we are trying to do the right thing. I think I really learned this in seminary. I was in a class on death and dying, taught by a Holocaust survivor who is now a hospital chaplain. She also worked with teenagers contemplating suicide. She had spent a lot of her life thinking about violence and death. One day in class, she asked us to pretend that we were going to be the chaplain for a patient near the end of their life who could barely speak and who could not move at all. What would we do as the chaplain sitting next to this patient in the hospital? Everyone volunteered to be the patient. No one wanted to be the chaplain. But finally, one young man did. He walked over to the patient lying down, sat down next to them, and calmly took the patient's hand. At which point Anna stood up and said in a loud voice, "Please never, ever do that again." We all turned and we all looked at Anna. She said, "I want you to think about this person near the end of their lives. They literally have no control over what is going on other than to say a word or two. And by taking their hand without asking, you have taken away more control with them than they have ever had. Could you have asked first? Would it be okay for me to take your hand? Could you have given that person one little bit of control over what might happen to them, when in the rest of their life they would have no control?" I've always remembered that moment and how harm can and cannot happen in ministry and how we can give back life. Just this spring, I had a dream. And in the dream, I am clinging to the side of a mountain. And I am doing my best to hang on. Eventually, I look around me, and next to me, about a couple feet away, I see another person also hanging on to the mountain. The person looks over me, lifts up their leg, and says to me, "Will you tie my shoe?" I look to the other side of me, and I see a minister who I assume I know, who says, "Can you find me a church where they'll let me preach what I want and do what I want as a minister?" And I look around and I see that there are thousands of people clinging to this mountain. And it's at that moment the mountain begins to erupt. I think of this dream as a metaphor for what so many of us have been going through during the last few years. That many of us have been just hanging on. And we assume that everyone else near us is able to do life just as they have always done, even though they're hanging on too. Maybe this is a moment where we all just hang on together as best we can. And that is what we can do. That would be a way to simply offer each other some hope. I've been thinking a lot about the future of religion, and I'm reminded of a story. It's actually of the last congregation Tricia served in Cleveland. A friend of mine at the UUA's son lives just west of the church. Big baseball fans. He'd gone to visit his son, So he was taking his son and two of his son's friends, all of whom were in their 20s, to a Cleveland baseball game. And on the way to the church, they passed West Shore Unitarian on the west side of Cleveland. And passing the church, they see the huge Black Lives Matter sign. They see the huge rainbow flag. They see the huge sign that says, "All are welcome." And immediately, the three young men begin talking. If I was going to go to church, that's the kind of church I would want to go to. This is the kind of church where I could make a difference in the world. And I was thinking about later, what would happen if they actually did show up at that church? They would certainly be told they were welcome. They would certainly be told that they could make a difference. But would it be with a caveat that you are welcome here as long as you act like the people who are 60 and 70 and 80 in our congregation? Would you be welcome as long as you give like the people who are 60 and 70 and 80 in our congregation? Would you be welcome as long as you serve on 37 other committees like the 60 and 70 and 80-year-old people in our congregation? Or could they find their own experience at church, their own way to make a difference? I believe the future of religion will have church looking differently than the way that it's always been. Are we ready for that? Now, it's just for these young men, not just for these young men who show up. We also often do this for Black and Indigenous and people of color in our congregations. I've talked to at least 3 people I know, all of whom were Black, who showed up at a congregation and within 2 weeks were asked if they wanted to serve on the church's board of trustees. Though that's not the worst we've ever done. As Trissa mentioned, I've showed up in over 450 congregations, my 3rd visit here to Burlington. But a friend of mine, African-American minister, showed up one Sunday morning to be a guest preacher. Showed up dressed in a suit, holding a sermon, meets the greeter. The greeter asks him, without paying a whole lot of attention, "Are you here to clean the building this morning?" I've never, in 450 congregational visits, ever shown up, and has anyone ever asked me if I was there to clean? Church should not be a place where we see people as a single story. We talked about that yesterday during the workshop. We have many stories. How do we hold the many stories and the many possibilities that people bring? And yet I think about another one of our congregations, just right before the pandemic. They took a vote. The vote was to say that the official theology of their congregation was humanism and no other theology was welcome. The vote did not pass, which surprised some of the people who brought it forth. But as a Unitarian Universalist, I was stunned that such a vote would actually happen. And I actually believe the future of religion is that people will be showing up looking for a church that is in fact multi-theological, where one theology does not provide all the answers, where people can show up and where they can meet like-minded people, where they can show up and know this is a place where they might be able to make a difference in the world. And I've talked with a couple of congregations who said, we're hoping to go back to the way things just were before, just as we've always done them. And I've asked, well, let me ask, do you want a minister for your next ministry, or do you want a hospice chaplain? Because I think the world is going to want more of us than just the way things have always been done. It is going to continue to be different. This could be a golden age coming up for Unitarian Universalism. Lots of new people are already starting to enter into our congregations, looking for all the things that I just talked about, multi-theological, like-minded people, wanting to make a difference in the world. I hope our congregations can be places where that happens. where religion can continue to serve those who come in next, in whatever this next normal is. And that does not mean we all have to think alike. We can be different. I'm reminded of a story from the dean of my seminary who was serving with the other deans at the Graduate Theological Union. And he and his friend Harry, who was from the Lutheran school, were in this meeting, and they were just in completely different opinions about what the GTU should do. And what Bob said to me in telling the story, he said, what intrigued me most was not that Harry and I had different opinions. We differed a lot in what we believed. What really intrigued me is that the other 7 deans were spending all of their time wanting us to get along and get on the same page and have the same opinion. He said, I finally said, I would rather hear what each of you has to say, that the 9 of us make a decision, and if you decide more what Harry thinks or what I think, I just want to let you know that Harry and I are going to be good friends after this is over. But I think it's time that we move forward and just hear what you have to say. What do you believe? And together we can make a good decision. I really think I learned the value of being able to have different opinions without having the conflict some years ago. I was asked to represent the UUA at a conference on religion, gender, and sexuality in Nashville, Tennessee. I was there, this was the late 90s, I was there with some 40 other denominations. We were all seated on this long dais, and I was seated next to John from the Church of Christ and Mark from the Church of God. And we're passing the microphone along, and John gets the microphone, and he goes, hi, my name is John, I'm from the Church of Christ, and we are to the right of the right. People laugh and giggle, and he hands the microphone to me. And I go, hello, my name is the Reverend Keith Cron. I'm the director of the Office of Bisexual, Gay, Lesbian, and Transgender Concerns. I can't get farther than that because John and Mark are making so much noise, scooting their chairs away from me. And when they finally stop, I say, and I'm from the Unitarian Universalist Association, and we are to the left of the left. I have to pitch the microphone to Mark, who won't take it from my hands. And we spent 4 days talking about all things about religion, gender, sexuality. I watch people's jaws drop when I talk about the fact that even in the late 90s, we had more women in ministry than men. That we were openly ordaining gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people, that we supported marriage equality, that we supported lifelong sexuality education that was sex positive regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity for our children. On the last day, John and Mark and 2 of his friends, probably named Matthew and Luke, I don't remember, came up to me and said, we would like to have lunch with you. And I thought, this will be fun. But it's all learning, right? So I figured, why not? Let's see what happens. Let's see what I learn. We get together, and the first thing we learn, which is a bit of a surprise to them, is that we were all born in the state of Tennessee, where the conference is happening. I was born in Knoxville. They were born in central Tennessee. But that surprised them, that this very liberal person was in fact a Tennessean. And we eventually get to what they want to talk about. And Mark says to me, we want you to know that we have literally listened to everything you have said. And every word that you have spoken, we want you to know that we disagree with you. But we also wanted you to know that we respect you. Because at least you are clear about what you believe, and you have listened to us. And we know that you have listened to us. And that we can respect. And in that moment, they were teachers for me. A reminder, even when we completely disagree with one another, it is possible to sit side by side and find common human value and dignity. It was after this that one of them tentatively and cautiously asked me if I knew anything at all about football. And they were surprised to learn that not only did I know more about football than all four of them, but that I had worked my way through college officiating football, basketball, and baseball. And I was their teacher in that moment. That each of us is more than a single story, that each of us brings many stories to the places we might be. And that is my hope for the future of religion, the future of this and every Unitarian Universalist congregation. That we can show up, that we can be a place where people who do not have to agree but can be side by side, where people can explore the world through multiple theologies, can find commonalities, and work to make a difference in the world. I know you all have done that, and I hope that you all will continue to do it in whatever the future of religion holds, whatever our next normal is. And I will be cheering and supporting you on all throughout that way. Thank you for what you do for Unitarian Universalism. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 170. Please rise in body and spirit as you are willing and able.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are getting straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are getting straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Please join me in the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. Our benediction is from Maya Angelou. I've learned, please be seated. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. May we go in peace, may we go in love, may we work for justice, may we go forth and bless the world. Amen.